In this section, we'll talk about hydration, meaning water requirements, how do you know when you're dehydrated, and then also vitamins, minerals, and sodium. Water is super important for your body to be healthy, and about 60% of your body weight is composed of water. And we talked earlier about muscle being 75% water. Your blood is 50% water. So it's very, very important to maintain those tissues. And you might have been told as a child that 8 cups of water is a recommendation per day. There's actually really no science to support that. And after doing more research, what they have decided is the best recommendation is to get a total of 15 and a half cups of fluid each day for men and 11 and a half cups for women. Now, this includes not only the water that you drink, but any fluids, whether it's tea or coffee. It also includes the liquids that you get in your foods, especially fruits and vegetables. There are even some liquids in meat as well. But things like cantaloupe, watermelon, grapes, oranges, all those types of foods have a high water content. So the more of those you eat, the more you're adding to your fluid intake. So sometimes that makes it a little challenging in terms of tracking the water from your food. It's easy to track what you get if you have a cup of coffee and a glass of water. So one recommendation is that if you don't eat too many vegetables and fruits, probably females are getting about 1 cup from their diet, males 2 cups, and then if you eat a good amount of fruits and vegetables, then you're probably 2 cups female, 3 cups male. So that would be a way you could assess how much food would account towards those fluid requirements. And so these are for individuals in general. So just note if someone is exercising a lot or spending a lot of time outside in the heat, that their requirements for fluid will be higher than this. What are some signs that you are dehydrated? Well, number one, if your urine is not clear. Now, the exception to that is, for example, let's just say you had a multivitamin this morning and then you noticed several hours later that your urine was very yellow. Again, a lot of that is the loss of the vitamins into the urine, which provides the color. But in the absence of medications or even certain foods, typically your urine should be clear. If you're having muscle cramps, that can be a sign of dehydration because we said muscle is mostly water. And if you get dehydrated, for example, let's just say that you weigh yourself before you exercise, you weigh yourself after exercise, and you lose 2% of your body weight or more, then that actually affects your performance because of that dehydration of the muscle itself, which can contribute to muscle cramps. And also, if you're thirsty, you're probably already dehydrated. So about 1% uh, dehydration kind of kicks in that thirst mechanism. And then you're really thirsty at about 2% when we said you actually have the impact on your performance. And then if you're not urinating every couple of hours, then you're also probably dehydrated. And that's a good indicator because when you get dehydrated, when your body tries to maintain and retain as much fluid as possible. Now let's take a look at vitamins. Vitamins are organic compounds, which all that means is that they contain carbon. And your body cannot produce vitamins, so it's essential that you get them in the food that you eat. There are 13 vitamins that have been determined to be essential for optimal health, And the thing to remember, as we said earlier, is that vitamins and minerals don't contain any calories. They have a lot of really important roles to keep us healthy. They help us break down food. They're important for growth, repair, maintenance of tissue, building muscle. And there are two broad categories of vitamins, what we call water soluble and fat soluble. So, looking at the water soluble vitamins, those are the B complex and vitamin C. And the reason they are called water soluble is because if we take them in greater amounts than they're needed in the body, essentially they're just excreted in our urine. We don't really have a way to store these water soluble vitamins. Vitamin D is especially important in breaking down carbohydrate, which is our immediate source of energy. So, a lot of times when you go into a store, you'll see those little packets that say vitamin B, packets that will provide you with energy. But the thing to remember is they don't have any calories, vitamins don't. So they actually can't provide you with energy. And yes, vitamin B is important to breaking down carbohydrate, but if you have enough vitamin B already and you're not vitamin D deficient, taking more vitamin B is not going to give you more energy. If you look really closely at the packets, most of them contain caffeine or some stimulant in there as well. So that's why you feel like when you take it, you get a bit of a surge of energy. So just remember, something has to have calories to really provide energy. So these cannot be stored in the body unless they're just taken in super excessive amounts. Fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K, and they get that name because they're essentially dissolved in fats, and that's actually how we transport them and absorb them within our digestive tract, is through having enough fat in our diet. And that's a danger of not having enough fat in your diet, is that you won't be able to absorb your fat soluble vitamins that you need. And these, as the name implies, because they are able to be dissolved in fats, we can store them in fatty tissues. So if you took in a supplement that had way too much of the A, D, E, and K, there would be a much greater risk that it could be stored and then have some very negative side effects. Minerals, on the other hand, are inorganic, which means that they don't contain carbon. So when we think of minerals, think of the table of elements. There are a certain number of minerals that, like vitamins, are essential for optimal health. They're important for muscle contraction, so like potassium, calcium, sodium are all important in terms of preventing muscle spasms and things like that when we get dehydrated. Also, for the blood to clot properly, we have to have the right minerals. Transporting oxygen, iron is super important because your red blood cells, or what they call hemoglobin, is actually made of iron, and that's how the oxygen is able to attach to the iron, and then ultimately the red blood cells drop off and deliver that oxygen to the body. Most minerals are toxic in excess, as they can be stored in the body. So you want to be careful about taking too much in terms of supplementation. So then the question arises, do I need a vitamin mineral supplement? Well, for most folks, unless you just have a really well-balanced diet, and when you track your diet, you see that you're getting all the important vitamins and minerals, which many of us don't on a regular basis, it's not a bad idea to take a multivitamin supplement. But when you select one, you want to get one that doesn't provide more than 100% of the RDA, or recommended daily allowance. Because if you take more than that, sometimes that can be too much. And as we said, certain types of minerals and even some of the vitamins can be stored in the body. So that's the best way to supplement, is just look on the back and try to get something that's just about 100% of the RDA for all of those essential vitamins and minerals that you need. Phytochemicals are chemicals that occur naturally in plants that prevent disease. And it's not something we can just go find in a bottle. These are things we need to get through our food. They have a lot of important properties, like stimulating the immune system. They can also block substances that we eat or drink or breathe that can become carcinogenic. They reduce inflammation, and they help prevent damage to our DNA and help with repair of DNA. All of these things together can help slow the growth and development of cancer cells. And then they also help regulate hormones. So that's another reason to get a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet. Next, let's talk about sodium, because that's one of the things that you're able to track with your MyFitnessPal. And the recommendation is less than 2,300 milligrams per day, which is simply 1 teaspoon. And if you are hypertensive, then a lot of times the physician will recommend that you get less than 1,500 milligrams, which is actually less than a half a teaspoon. When I talk to folks, they typically say, oh, well, I don't salt my foods, I can't be getting too much sodium. Well, in reality, a lot of those adults who don't salt their food get over 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. And again, you can easily obtain high amounts of sodium in your diet without ever salting your foods, because most of the sodium comes from grains, meats, processed poultry, soups. It's already in the food when we purchase it. And if we get too much sodium in our diet, what it does is it causes us to retain water in our circulatory system, and that causes our blood pressure to go up. That increases our risk of heart disease and also our risk of stroke. And there are some folks that are more sensitive to sodium than others. Some people can, for example, eat a meal, say a Mexican meal that might be very high in sodium, and then notice that the next day when they wake up that their rings are tight, their hands are swollen. And so some people are even more sensitive than others and may even need to lower their sodium intake more. This is something you always need to discuss with your doctor.